Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Giovia Financial Credit Union. I'm focused on bringing the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. I want to bring you weekly advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business, and plus interview the top business and community leaders in the industry. So I'm very excited today because I have someone with me today. She is a master artist and she is a financial professional, Cassandra Jones. So now Cass brings a unique set of skills to each and every one of her clients. She has mastered the art of finance, and now she's joining the mission of empowering the world with financial education. Her passion and her driving force has always been helping others and making clients happy with custom and unique creations. And she has an artistic background, so she's very good at that. She creates the possibility for financial literacy and freedom for everyone. So, Cass, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yep.
This is a great opportunity, and I love the show.
Oh, thank you.
I really liked hearing entrepreneurs share their journey. I went through almost every episode.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
it was really cool.
Thank you. That's what I find exciting about like the business development side of things. People often, at barbecues will approach me about banking stuff, and I'm like, because it's the banking stuff that I find like, all right, that's what I do, but it's what you do that excites me. And every time I meet someone and I go through what they've gone through with their journey, I find that very exciting, and the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, it's uniquely American, and it's just an amazing experience talking to business and community leaders like yourself. So I appreciate you coming on to share your story. We're very excited. And you come from a background that's very unique from a lot of other financial professionals in that you are very creative. You are extremely artistic. And I got to see your stuff on Instagram, and I was like, wow, this woman is the real deal. She's done some really cool stuff. So why don't you take me a little bit through that, and then we'll go into your work and how that kind of applies to the financial profession.
I would love to.
Okay.
So I am from New York. I am born and raised Long Island, from East Meadow, and I now live in Brooklyn. I could not leave New York. I've tried so many times to go look for other places, to go thrive, and this was the place for me. It's just a feeling you get. And I will say when it comes to artwork, when it comes to pretty much everything that I do is a passion project. Mm-hmm. I have had many jobs in the past. It's not that I never leaned on other supplemental income when I was an artist. I knew that I had to do that. I was told all the cliches when I was growing up. They're a starving artist. You're never going to be able to lean on this as a career. I was always encouraged by my family to fully approach my dreams and not listen to those cliches. But moving forward, I learned a lot about why those things were there. And I also learned in the spirit of entrepreneurship, what were the things that were holding those people back that made those cliches exist in the first place. Right. And as I approached finance and as I approached health, I started to learn those three things have a lot in common. Art, health, and wealth are kind of like gatekept. They're known to be part of the population that has a lot more money. Financial advisement, that was always for people who had a lot more money. People that didn't have money thought I either can't afford an advisor or I don't have enough to really be advised on. Or maybe my problems are too big to even bring to that step. I need to take that first step. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with health. And the commonality between the three of them, there's a missing chunk of education. I really have that passion to just make the world a better place. And that came through in all three of those journeys.
Now, bringing those three things together, though, to some, it would seem a very big leap, right? What made you choose the route of actually going through the motions of becoming a real advisor in this capacity? I'll
be the most brutally honest, right? Mm-hmm. So as an artist, and doing other jobs on the side, most of them applied to art. I worked as an art fabricator. I've ground steel. I've done wood and metal fabrication. I've done anything under the sun that fell under that category. And that being said, I felt like I was always building other people's dreams. It was always in the back of my mind that I really wanted to really make an impact with my artwork, and I just never foresaw how I could do that in a big way. While this was going on, I also thought that this would be a lifelong journey for me. I've been an artist since I was 3 years old. So it's in my blood. The creativity runs real thick in there. And one thing that happened was I hurt myself. So I ended up hurting my hand, my dominant hand. And this was right after my mom had passed. And I ended up being a client. My mom passed after her battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I learned a lot about health in that time, not only for myself who was suffering and hadn't been diagnosed, but for her, it was pancreatic cancer was a sentence. You know, they were like, you have 2 months, if that, if you even try. And so to see her come and be the underdog that was like, absolutely not, it gave this new breath to me. But then I saw the financial struggles that came along with that. And then upon her passing, I was left as the executor of the estate. My mom was in finance. I did not take advantage. I was not wise enough to take advantage of the knowledge she had while she was alive. So upon her passing, I didn't know what to do. And I say this so honestly because I want people to know that it doesn't matter where you start as long as you're honest about it. Mm-hmm. When people told me, go take the money out of the market, I said, okay, where is it? How do I get there? Give me the address. How do I call them?
Where's the market?
Can I Google it? You know, so I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And stepping in as a client, I also was grieving. I was going through a really hard time. That was the first time I had ever grieved. And that was the wrong person to start with. That was the person that was closest to me in my life. And then go to the other side, I hadn't been diagnosed yet, so I was really struggling neurologically as well as physically.
Wow.
Now, moving forward, I'm on the right medications. I feel a whole lot better, and I'm able to do more. But at that time as a client, I found such encouragement, patience, and understanding from my advisor, who happens to be my mentor now. So full circle, I was a client. They helped me take everything that I couldn't find or almost lost, put it all into things that were perfectly custom made for me and my family. So it wasn't a cookie cutter strategy. I said, this is what I want. I want my dad to be okay. I know that I need to plan for myself because there's a lot of changes going on, and I want my brother to be okay. And this that I'm looking at is a whole hot mess. And they helped me strategically for months put all of those pieces together and then actually formulate a strategy and help me implement it so that I had financial freedom. That was never something that I foresaw. Even when my mom was in banking, they didn't even think they'd be able to retire. Moving forward now, I'm seeing that there's markets like us who didn't necessarily qualify for that advisement, and people like my mom went out and got that education for themselves. Mm-hmm. They put those small little actionable steps in place, and that really did help. It put us in a position where we had options, but then I didn't know what to do with them. And why did that happen? It's because I didn't have any of that education.
Right. Well, and the thing is, sometimes it's because folks don't have that education themselves, so it's hard for them to pass it on. Other times it's because, like, I think generationally, there's a generation before us where you just don't talk about the stuff with your kids.
This is a very common thing.
That's got to be tough to overcome.
One, it's very taboo, right? Mm-hmm. No one talked about finance, my family included. Mm-hmm. When we were struggling, when she was doing treatments and stuff, she happened to be working full time, and no one understood why that was. For her, she said, I need to do this. This is something. She loved her job. Mm-hmm. She loved her team. She loved her bank. She loved her friends. It was like part of the thing that made her want to wake up in the morning.
I can
relate.
It
gave her a purpose. She helped so many people, whether it be charity or the kids in the community, people that needed to find jobs, that I feel like it made such this big impact in such a small community, and I saw that happen. I feel like moving forward, the hardest thing was overcoming the things that she missed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you don't really know what's there if you're not having that conversation.
Right. And I don't think anyone, especially in past generations, were ready to have that conversation. And even now today, people think that they can come in and do financial advisement, be able to say what their goals are, and that they'll be led the right way. Now, the biggest mistake that people make is that we lie about where we're at. And I encourage people to think of this as a GPS. There's no way for you to get where you want to go and to hit those goals or to have that life if you're not honest about where you are.
Right.
Your GPS asks you one question when you ask them to take you somewhere, and it's, where are you now? If you're not honest about where you are, it's very hard for an advisor to lead you where you want to go.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, and today we have our guest, Cassandra Jones. She's the financial professional and master artist. What do you feel is like the biggest misconception about financial planning? I feel like it's this big word. A lot of people are just like, oh, but what's the biggest misconception you see from where you sit?
I think there's two. One, you do not need to be in a good position or have a lot of money to make a plan. Plans are no longer a cookie-cutter strategy. And that being said, neither are policies. I know a lot of people will go and get life insurance or they'll go and get a certain account. I think the misconception is that they're all the same. Oh, I have life insurance. Oh, I have a savings, or I have a 401k. If you don't know what those policies are doing for you, or you don't have the right strategy of why you even have the policies, they're not going to do you much justice.
Right. Well, it's like parts of a car. You can have an engine and you can have a transmission, but if they're not connected by working parts, it's not a car.
Or say the wrong mechanic put that together for you.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about my agency is that we are mission before commission. We are very client-centric, and we're very transparent and honest because this isn't very big on education. So we're teaching you at the same time so that there's this level of trust that didn't exist before. And so I think that really helps to, one, get past those taboos about being able to talk about your finances and be honest, because there is no shame. We've all come from certain places. But I think also looking at policies, even policies that either clients have had in the past or I've had in the past, I've noticed that it really depends on who you have. Like we reference a car, but if you had the wrong mechanic and that mechanic took those parts and put them together and it did it improperly, you could have the best car in the world. It's not going to function the way you need it to.
Correct. And if you don't maintain the car, you don't give it the right oil, you don't use the right gas, it's just not going to function properly.
Correct. And advisement is not something that has to be paid for now. It is free. And advisement with us is a continuous process. We know that education changes. We know the industry changes. We also know your needs change. Every year, we make sure to contact our clients that are already in existence if we haven't touched base with them recently. And we do an annual review just like your doctor does. We want to make sure that you're staying on track. Maybe there's some things you didn't get to implement. There's no shame in not accomplishing the whole goal. We want to see where you're at and then redirect you to make sure we get you back on path.
Yeah, that's very important. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about your team, a little bit about the firm that you work with, and what sort of products and services that you offer to help folks with all that? Yes.
So the World Changers, I love the name.
Yeah, that's a cool name.
I'm very philanthropic. And so becoming a client with them was a no-brainer for me. But then becoming a referral source was because I had such a great experience as a client. So I started to refer more and more. And then our company is it's a woman-owned company. Our CEO is Fredel Barber, and she's actually someone that I relate to a lot and I admire quite a bit. She had a very similar story to me as far as her goals when she was first, going out as an adult into the world. And so seeing her overcome a lot of that and not only overcome the things that were in her past, but then to constantly try to evolve in the future was very inspiring. And so now the team that we have in this agency, we're held by very high moral values. We have to be respectful. We have to be transparent. We're client-centric. And our number one thing is being able to pivot, be flexible, and educate our clients. I will say the biggest differentiator is that they also equip us as entrepreneurs to do the best by our clients because they handle so much for us on the back end. And for me, this is a huge difference. I've owned so many businesses and not all of them have thrived. Mm-hmm. The reason why this was such a big difference, they really support personal growth, which I have done so much of in the past 2 years being an agent. But then on top of that, they give you the opportunity to have that back-end support where normally when you own a business by yourself, you are by yourself. I am in a business where I own that business for myself, but I am never by myself. I have a full agency that backs me. I have a mentor that gives me hands-on training, and they are available at all times for whatever I need, and I love it.
And that is so important because it's very hard to help folks if you're not getting the help, you're not getting the support that you need. So without that, and often I see that, you and I do a lot of networking and you see folks and you could tell when there's a lone wolf there and it's like, oh, this person doesn't have the support. And maybe even if they're good at generating relationships, where is it really going to go and how long is it going to last? And I think that's extremely important that you have that level of support and mentorship behind you and that level of resources. Now, you have your own story, obviously. Can you share with me a story of a client that you've worked with where what you've done has made an impact and changed their life?
So I will say I've made very small impacts that have made a giant impact when you combine them. Now, I'm a new agent. Mm-hmm. I will say the biggest impact I've seen is me as a client. And I'll be really honest, I am not your ideal client. When I came in to be a client, I was canceling appointments because I was grieving. I had health problems, so sometimes wasn't prepared for the meeting. Mm-hmm. I'm the client that I don't want. So for everyone out there that thinks that you don't match this, I promise you it doesn't matter what the situation is. You can do this, and we are here to help. We're very understanding. That being said, I think that as a client, coming in and knowing almost nothing, right? And being able to see all that transformative change in my own life, being able to see my dad be set up for life, being able to see my brother be okay, and then being able to help family and friends the way that I was helped was a huge, launch for me. I really didn't think that I was going to jump into this so heavily at first. Mm-hmm. And then I was kind of overtaken. And this happens for me when I am passionate. So it's happened in art. It's happened in health. I now advocate for patients on my own time just to help make the world a little bit better. I know how hard it is for people to navigate their health journeys. And now I'm learning how hard it is for people to navigate their financial journeys. Sometimes those two come together. A lot of the debt that we see in the country, majority of bankruptcies are from health bills.
Oh, sure.
And
I could tell you as a cancer survivor, even when you have insurance and things are covered, it's still those copays and the other things you don't even think about. Like for my treatments, I needed to live in New Jersey for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. That's an expensive proposition.
Yes.
And if you're already living on Long Island with 3 kids, that's an expense you may or may not be able to take on. So there's you got to do planning to kind of help with that and then recover from that.
And I think people always assume they have health insurance or they have a little bit of life insurance and that's enough. And in reality, from a patient I have 4 autoimmune diseases. This company I entered into knowing this is something I can do remote. If I can't do my artwork, whether that be physically or because of my health, it was something that I got a promotion while I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I was able to work remotely and have no issues and actually thrive that way. So I think that it's important to let people know it doesn't matter where you're coming from. As a client and then going through the whole journey, I am kind of the full picture. Mm-hmm. I went from that client side to referral. Once that passion came through, I almost had to be an agent. There was nothing in me that would prevent me from just basically word vomiting every piece of knowledge that I had to help people. And I said, you're just doing it now. You might as well just actually do it and be a full-fledged agent. Actually go out and commit to this. It's the only thing that I've ever done in my entire life that I wasn't innately good at. So I think that people always think that you're just going to wake up and say, I want to be in finance, or I'm going to wake up and I want to. That's not necessarily what happens. Sometimes your passion is what drives you, or sometimes your purpose is what drives you. That's definitely what drove me to take this next leap in this industry.
Now, what are some of the trends that you're seeing with folks as you speak with them? Because, again, you do a lot of networking, which I think is great. That's a great way to surround yourself with experts in other fields and all that. When you're speaking to people, other business owners or other friends or other artists, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? Oh, in all those areas that everybody's experiencing the same stuff.
Yeah. So one, I noticed this is a thing that's across generations. Mm-hmm. Lack of knowledge is very common. And obviously it applies differently to different generations, but we do address that. Okay. So one of the main things that I see is that when you're looking at businesses, I think that growing up, we kind of all thought that you're an adult, you have a business, you have it all together. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest misconception I have ever seen. And now networking as an adult, having my business and talking to other business owners, I realize either they don't have things in order to protect themselves or things aren't going as planned. And there's no backup plan for that. When you look at younger generations, this is a lot different. We switch jobs, we do things differently. I would say for the younger generations, they think that they don't need things.
Right.
And I would say this is a lesson to be learned. I am 37 years old. I am no longer insurable. Mm-hmm. And from a survivor, right? And most people, they're like, I'm 30, I'm healthy. The things that you need to put in place or the things that are available to you now that are the best options, they require you to be somewhat healthy. They require you to be, have good habits. And those things are the things that will affect you in the future. And time is not your friend. Mm-hmm. Time can be your best friend if you help it, if you have it work for you. Time will be your worst enemy if you let it work against you. And so I think people think it's okay to wait. Yesterday was the time to start.
Oh, 100%. And it's so funny, because the decisions you make when you're young, thinking, I have plenty of time, I don't need this, as you said, I'm going to be a rock star in a year. That's all the kind of things that I'm hearing. And I think to myself, back when I was in their shoes, and now I'm starting to sound old, but the fact of the matter is, I was lucky in that I had someone come to me when I was in my 20s and say to me, hey, invest in the 401k. Hey, I know you have the match plan, max that out. Mm-hmm. I was like, why? I need all the money I can get. I'm out partying. Well, I'm so glad that I listened to that person that they said, hey, you're not going to feel it, because I didn't, because it was all before taxes. I didn't feel it. And now those investments, well, here I am. And as you said, time, it just flew by. Here I am in my 50s looking at it going, all right, well, you know what? That worked for me. While I was doing my thing, working for others, that money was working for me. And now I have that to go back on. So that's something I often say to folks when they're just starting out in their careers. Make sure you do that. Make sure, I know you're not thinking of that now, but before you know it, I said it to my daughter the other day who's in her 20s, same thing. I'm like, I was so glad somebody said this to me. At the time, I didn't think it mattered, but I'll tell you now that it does. So it's a big thing. And I think the other thing that I hear often is, and I was having a conversation with a National Community College professor last night about this, was that the expectation is, I want to be in this role now, or I want to be in this financial position now, but you have to do the work to get there. You have to set it up.
Big time.
Yeah.
I also think people limit themselves. Mm-hmm. And this is a common thing across all industries, just across life. Your mentality will limit what you think is possible. And so that'll be your goal. And I will say the differentiator when you work with us is that we encourage you to dream. So no matter what that dream is, say it has 5 goals in it, we're going to have actionable steps that help you implement the strategies you need that are custom made for your goals to get you to where you need to be.
Now, I know people there's a lot of ADHD out there, right? So people love seeing
myself included.
Yeah, I'm there. So people love seeing kind of the top tips. Mm-hmm. So what are the top tips that you would say are, these are the things I would make sure you do right away? Maybe the top 2 or 3 things.
Educate yourself. Number one. The lack of education will lead you to lean on other people. Like you'll walk in, you'll have an advisor, they'll tell you this is right, and it'll be 20 years later when that policy is ready to pay out, and maybe you didn't understand the provisions that came along with it, and now you're in a totally different situation. I would say both parties should always have the education, whether the advisor is slowly teaching or whether you're getting that education yourself. And that is one thing we do offer. We have an app. We know that finance is taboo. We know that people don't want to admit where they don't have that knowledge. And so we allow you to access that on your own time so that when you step into a meeting with us, you're able to understand the lingo. You're able to understand what we're talking about. Also, you could be a little more clear about what goals you want because you know what's achievable.
I agree. I agree entirely. If there is one thought that you want to leave our listener with, what's that one thought that would be?
Let's see. One, now is the time. Mm-hmm. We said time is, it can work for you or against you. And like I said, it's never too soon. It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s and you decide these are my goals right now. And maybe you don't know your goals for retirement. That's okay. But the sooner that you start to get your things in place, the better. Because once you know what you have, when you're moving forward and those goals change, it's a lot more easy to manipulate them. And then I'd say the second thing that I want to leave you with, for entrepreneurs, take the leap. Stop limiting yourself. I will say the one thing that slowed me down so much was thinking that I didn't have the right as an artist to tell people what to do with their money, right? And so this slowed me down quite a bit to try and fuse these two markets, to tell people what I was doing, and that was very silly. And I realized this when my CEO and my leadership brought it to my attention. They're like, you're being selfish. When you have knowledge that helps people, when you can make a positive impact on the world, you not saying something is exactly that. It's selfish. Don't hold out for things that can really help people.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Share.
So why don't you give us your information so that folks know where to find you?
Absolutely. So my Instagram is Miss Cass Jones, Miss MISSCASSJONES. I have a website, CassJones.com, where you can see not only stuff about finance, but also my artwork. And my number,
very cool.
Thank you. And my number is 347-346-2016. That's my business number. You can reach me at any time.
So Cass Jones, master artist and financial professional, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with your co-host and producer, Denisha Boston Hill. Visit nccradio.org for more information. We're available on Odyssey, TuneIn, iHeartRadio as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Speaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC.